Christians, it's time we get honest about the Sabbath. And I'm not talking about Sunday. I know the early church met on the first day of the week. It says so in Acts 20, verse 7. What does that have to do with the Sabbath? How about this? In Mark 6:2, Jesus teaches in the synagogue on the Sabbath, not on Sunday. So I think we need more than one mention of some Christians meeting on one Sunday to upend a principle that dates back to creation. It's pretty basic. In the first chapter of Genesis, God rests from his work on the seventh day, Yom Shabbat in Hebrew. The Hebrew names for the days of the week are a simple numbering system using the ordinal forms of the numbers. Yom Rishon, day first, Yom Sheni, day second, all the way to Yom Shabbat, day seventh. 7 still means 7. Also, recall that in Genesis 1, the days are counted from evening to morning. So Yom Shabbat actually starts at sundown on our Friday and lasts till the next sundown. Think of creation. Each day, God took chaos and turned it into order. Therefore, there was chaos and there was order, evening and morning, the first day. In Exodus, God gives us the Ten Commandments, the fourth of which is to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Does he tell us to remember to go to church? Does he say we have to go to the morning and evening services, or is morning only okay? Read it again. He tells us to do no work. That's it. Since that time, our Jewish brothers have added a ton of Sabbath traditions and prayers, and Christians have added going to church and erroneously thinking that the seventh day was somehow replaced with the first day. Am I saying you're wrong for going to church on Sunday? Go to church whenever you want. I think it's a good thing. But it has nothing to do with the Sabbath. God's instruction for keeping the Sabbath is to do no work. He didn't work 6 days, then take a day off for church. He rested from his work. And that was at the end of 6 days, not at the beginning. Oh, by the way, I did find one brief mention in Leviticus 23 that referred to the Sabbath being a day of sacred assembly. But all other Torah references I could find were to rest, and with a few specifics thrown in, and a whole bunch of ceremonial instructions for the priests in the tabernacle or temple services. Now I say Torah references because by the time we get to the New Testament, Jesus was not a fan of a lot of the Shabbat teaching and practices of his day. As Christians, most of us have never even considered not working on Friday evening and Saturday. It's usually a day when we catch up on all our work at home. Since we're taking Sunday off for church, we feel like we need to make the most out of Saturday. That would be fine, except God said not to. If you really care about obeying God, what are you going to do with it? Consider this. God put it out there as a commandment, not a suggestion. God's purpose for commandments isn't just for giving us another way of sinning and getting in trouble with him. He commanded it because he wants us to do it, because it's good for us. Have you ever tried it? Just try taking a Sabbath and not letting yourself do any work. Then do it again the next Sabbath. You'll know if you're working or not, so don't bother getting into any rabbinical or pharisaical definitions of what constitutes work. Jesus certainly didn't have much use for their definitions and regulations. Now, after a few weeks of keeping the Sabbath, you'll begin to treasure those days off. Leave a comment if you try it. You'll see that God's command gives us license not to have to work. You don't have to feel guilty about wasting the day because God told you not to. It's time to flip the way you've been thinking. God's commandments that we've seen as limiting are actually very liberating. As Jesus said in Mark 2:27, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. But wait, you say, haven't we been set free from the law? That sounds like legalism. Yep. And if I tell you not to hit yourself on the head with a hammer, you're not obligated to obey me. However, you'll be a lot better off if you do. Use some common sense. Does not being under the law mean that God doesn't care if you commit murder? Walking in the Spirit sets you free of the law. But you walk in the Spirit by lining up your thoughts and desires with God's. If you value the life that God has put in other people and love as God loves, you'll have no desire to murder. At that point, you have no need for that law. Your agreement with the Spirit of God has made the law unnecessary for you. 2 Corinthians 3:17 says, "Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." So back to this commandment. God still knows that this Sabbath rest is good for you, and He wants the best for you. It's not intended to be a legal restriction, but a blessing. Give it a try. See for yourself. You may have just been missing out on something pretty great. So thanks for watching, and as always, if you enjoyed this, like and subscribe. Bye.